start by welcoming Matt to the Jan Broberg show and to our goals in having this podcast be something where we are becoming more aware of what trauma is and how it affects our lives, our loved ones, and how to move forward through the healing process. That's our goal, is that we might raise some awareness. And today, Matt, as my guest, is going to help us do that in a unique way. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I met Matt. I've gotten to know Matt. I find him to be incredibly intelligent and talented. And he also struggles because he has a disability. And I want him, in his own words, to tell us about that, and to just to start wherever you'd like to start in why trauma that we are unpacking and discovering is a part of everybody's life to some degree or another, but why this particular trauma is so under talked about.
Well, it's under talked about. Well, first of all, the disability that I have is cerebral palsy, not cerebral, but cerebral palsy. That's the other thing. People never know how to pronounce it, and they always confuse it with MS. So I will do my best to dispel any confusion with that. So I'm very lucky because born. I was born at 26 weeks. Um, and they just had enough technology in 1991 where they could, take care of a baby that was born that early. Um, and just for you aspiring medical students out there are two ways that you can basically get cerebral palsy, but you can't really get it. You have it from birth, period. You don't develop it later. You either get choked by the umbilical cord or so lack of oxygen, or you have a brain or a blood vessel that bursts in your brain. And depending on where in your brain that happens will depend, on the severity of your disability. 3 out of 4 babies that are born with it have severe mental and well, I mean, varying degrees, but it's usually very severe. I mean, I don't want to represent myself as, a physician because I'm not one, but I've done a lot of research. So more often than not, it's pretty severe, and there's sometimes mental, cognitive things. There's debilitating physical things. I'm lucky because the only thing that it affects is my balance, and I don't write that well, but nobody needs to write nowadays. You can just use a computer. So, but
That's
yeah,
true.
yeah, and so in that regard, it's literally just a balance issue. I walk with crutches for 99% of the time, and then I have my walker for when I need to go longer distances. But usually, I'm pretty independent with all the walking stuff, and then I drive just like everybody else does, and I do everything that everybody else does. And so you mentioned, Jan, that it's it's the awareness is just not there, and the reason the awareness is just not there is because nobody wants to think about it. It's one of these things where you're walking and you see somebody with a disability on the street, and you pass them and you don't really think that they're really there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to tell everybody that you, and when I say you, I'm referring to everybody that's listening, are, and I don't mean to sound harsh, but you've done it. You're not special. Don't say that you haven't done it, because you've done it. um, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just it's a societal thing. And what I have told you, Jan, my kind of eye test for this, is this whole explanation that I'm giving right now, and usually I don't even go into the whole 26 weeks thing and all that stuff, how you get it and all that. But I mean, this whole explanation takes about 4 or 5 minutes. If somebody can't understand what I'm, clearly being able to explain to them and about how I'm normal like everybody else, if somebody can't understand that in 4 or 5 minutes, I don't have time for you. It's that sounds harsh, and you're gonna find out in this podcast. I'm a very blunt person, but I'm a very nice person. I tell things like they are.
which is so refreshing. And sometimes I think that because it seems to be societally correct, and you're right, um, we are really the this is what I like to call people, human beings. We are human judging machines. Like judge. I mean, that it just never shuts down. That's just
Right.
part of like it's subconscious as well. Like we're the database, down here collecting all the data in our subconscious mind, and then the conscious mind that judges something on a very surface level for the most part is what keeps, I think, people with disabilities feeling invisible. And that is a traumatic state to deal with when you are capable of doing everything everybody else does. You just have this one slight thing that is visible to the human eye. So all of the other judgments that we are not even aware of that we are doing and making seem to put that huge roadblock in the way of actually knowing, getting to know the person on the other side of that. And that must be like one of the most frustrating and upsetting kinds of traumas because it doesn't go away. It's not going to be healed, so to speak.
Right. And yeah, and I can uh, confidently say that this has been something that I have dealt with, and as friends of mine have told me, well, you've just kicked ass for 31 years anyway, so that's not really a problem for you. And they're right, it's not, but it's frustrating when the rest of society um, doesn't really understand that. And, if my friends want to tell me that I'm doing a great job, cool, guys, thank you, but I don't really care what you guys think because you guys are already my friends.
Yeah.
I do care, but I don't, because it's the other way around. Um, and I also can say, Jan, that this podcast, doing this, will probably be, I'm not going to say definitively the only time in my life, but probably one of the only times in my life that this topic will be the center for as long as we're going to talk about it today. Because I mean, in terms of that I'm putting out publicly, I just don't do this because it's not something that I, up until recently, have thought I need to do. But just so many things have happened. And whenever anybody in my personal life wants to talk about it, that's fine. Uh, but, when somebody, and I know we had talked about this, when you're in the supermarket and you're buying a bottle of liquor and somebody says, hey, you're an inspiration to me. Why? Why am I? That's you should check yourself, man. I shouldn't be an inspiration to you if I'm buying a bottle of liquor. And it's comments like that, and so many people have told me, hey, they're, they have good intentions. Well, yeah, but it doesn't feel that way. And they may have good intentions, but that doesn't mean I have to react to it. I don't have to cater to people's emotions, and that's a whole nother thing. And one of the things that you know about me, Jan, is I love to talk way too much. So just jump in whenever. Um,
I'm going to in a minute, but I like this
uh,
because I
um,
think this inspiration thing is so interesting because it's the default that people go to in order to have somebody to say to, somebody that looks different, and they therefore want to do something positive in their little brief commentary, and it doesn't always do what you think it's going to do because it feels almost condescending, doesn't it?
it does. It does feel condescending. It's absolutely just just something that really I don't like because it's something that is. I mean, imagine just going and doing whatever you do, and somebody saying that you are such just an inspiring figure for doing something that everybody does every day. I mean, and I haven't always reacted strongly. I mean, depending on who asks and in what, I guess, tone they ask it, I'll play around with it and I'll even crack a joke or two. And,
Yeah.
maybe it, internally I'll say, I didn't like that, but whatever. This person seems like a nice person. I'm not going there today. Um, I mean, one time uh, recently I sat down at a bar I was at, and there was this girl that was pretty cute, and that was her opening line to me. She goes, "You're an inspiration to me," and I'm like, "That dress is an inspiration to me." Like, "Hi, how you doing?" Like, I mean, you know, I mean, what am I gonna do? Get madder? No, I just sat down. Like, so, um,
Yeah.
it's 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 a very kind of backhanded compliment thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think as human beings, we whatever we don't understand or know, we generally take the easy way out. We go around
100%.
instead of through, right?
Right.
It's human nature. And because we're kind of born with this human judging and making judgments, and it's almost not even known to the conscious mind, because we're assessing danger all the time. We're assessing, who's who. I mean, we can tell if somebody is like interested in talking to us, and somehow this whole machinery that's going on just knows that stuff, and you're like, but I'm not interested in talking to him or the other. Where so how am I going to either kindly or nicely say no, or I'm going to move away and pretend like I'm talking to somebody else, like waving, like I wave across the bar to some imaginary figure, and we get out of things that we don't understand, that we
Yeah.
because our machinery is going off. And I think it's so interesting to hear about your some of your interests and the things that you've been involved in, your work, past life, present life, in your life, because you're a huge sports fan and you know everything about it, and you could be announcing sports. That's how much and you're an intelligent guy. You worked Tell us a little bit about your work in kind of the television, radio, that industry, because that was a kind of a high point that I know you really loved at one time, and I think it's interesting for people to take note.
Well, I mean, I still love it. And that was my goal, is to do broadcasting, and for a major league something, and but that industry is very very tough to get into, and for that reason, and just knowing that the jobs that you have to take before you hit the big time, if you ever are fortunate enough to hit the big time, they just don't pay any money. And I made a logical decision that if some lightning bolt hits and I get a call from somebody, and okay, I'll try to do it, um, but it was something where I was presented with an opportunity to have a regular, really cool job with all the good benefits and nice money long term, and I took it because I'm 31 at this point, and I didn't want to be 50 and not have money and security, and if you are thinking about having a family, it is a little bit of an ugly part of our society where we look and we go, okay, this person, do they have any backing? And it's a lot easier to sit down next to somebody or across from somebody that you're attracted to, and you're trying to convince them that you would be a suitable person for them to date. But then at the same time, I mean, if you use the words, pension and 401k, that's a lot more attractive than I'm a, not to disrespect starving artists, but hey, the gig's gonna happen. It's almost there. It hasn't happened yet, but oh, by the way, I'm 52 and I've been trying to do this for 25 years, and
I use my garage for band practice
I use my garage for band practice.
because I don't own a car.
Yeah, mom makes dinner, and oh, by the way, you want to get married? That's not attractive. Sorry, people.
Yeah, just getting honest here.
So that's why I did what I did, and I have, as Dan mentioned, I've been able to do a lot of cool things and meet a lot of cool people, and I'll leave names out of it, but a lot of people that listen to your podcast that are sports fans would know a lot of these names that I would say as really prominent people in the TV industry. And yes, like I said, if you become them, you make all the money, but it just doesn't happen because you either have to. I'm not kidding. You either have to die or get fired, or those are the two things for a spot to open up. And the smart ones get that spot and they never leave, and which I would do if that were my opportunity. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I could already write a book with all the things that I've been able to do, just being around the industry and fun stories and things like that. But fun stories don't pay the bills.
Right. And so you made a conscious choice. I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to have this stability. And what at the root of that, what were the reasons that you just said it. You basically said, well, what if, I do want to have my own place. I want to be, independent, which you are, and you do. And you want the relationship that might lead to marriage and kids. Those are all things that you want and that you are physically, mentally, and now financially capable of having.
Yeah. Well, I mean, down the road, but
well, yeah.
But yeah.
Right time, right person, right place, all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm going to the title of this episode should be "Keeping It Real." Not to be confused with when "Keeping It Real" goes wrong for those of you who are fans of Dave Chappelle. That was a really funny skit.
It's a good one.
But because I'm gonna say something that you all are thinking right at this moment, and I'm not ashamed of it because this is just life. This is how it works. I am a guy, and for us guys on the planet, yes, everything does revolve around the girl. So, yeah, essentially, I gave up the career and everything because eventually I want to end up getting married. I want to have a family, and the girl's not going to want to marry me if I'm in my garage.
Right, at band practice. With you have a beautiful head of hair. Matt's you got great hair, but at that point you might be balding, and you're like, oh gosh,
not good. You don't want to be a spokesperson for Rogaine and be in your garage.
Exactly. That's not what we're looking for. So I just find this conversation really important because obviously the sense of humor is there, the intelligence is there, the physical body is there, the sexual function is there, all of it is there. But what happens when trauma from something that obviously is not your fault, just like I would talk to a sexual assault survivor, and I know that you've had some experiences with trauma, that are definitely from the disability, and that doesn't go away. How do you Like, I find you to be a remarkable person in the fact that you are willing to look at the reality of what you face every day, which is people look at you differently or they don't look at you at all. You feel invisible. You've said those words to me before. So, with a lot of people that have survived sexual assault as children, they also say similar words. They feel invisible or they want to be invisible. There's so much shame or guilt or blame that they have on themselves, which is completely misplaced
Right, exactly.
because they are not to blame. They should not be ashamed. But that is a natural consequence of someone who goes through trauma, especially trauma in secret. And because we don't talk about this, what we're talking about right now, I think there's a sense of secrecy that is traumatizing for someone never to be able to say, hello, could I just scream at the top of my lungs? I'm just a normal guy. I want to date. I want to get married. I want to have family. I'm doing all the right things to get there. Is there a way we can change this? Is there a way to change that? You've said to me you're not so sure. Tell me about that.
Um, what I have realized, and I'll tell a quick anecdote. I was asked to. I've been asked a lot in my life to be an advocate for people with disabilities, and 99% of the time I have turned it down. It's so ironic because I'm the worst advocate for people with disabilities in the sense that I okay, so I went to a I call it a seminar or something for
Mm-hmm.
students with disabilities when I was like 17 years old. Mom wanted me to do it. You just kind of do what mom wants you to do when you're 17, or now actually. Just always listen to mom.
Yeah,
But
good advice.
anyway, and I went there, and everything was so much of, pun intended, like a crutch. Everybody, all these people kept using their disability as a reason why they couldn't do something. And listen, I understand the time that we're in, and this is the only part of the podcast where I will get even 1 inch political, but I kind of have to just for a history lesson. The
Yeah.
Americans with Disabilities Act was signed in 1991. Okay, that led to all the curb cuts and all the cool stuff and the handicap spaces and all those things that we all just kind of take for granted. That happened then. Okay, I was born. Actually, it may have been. I think it was 90 or 91. It's one of those 2 years, and I was born in 91. So pre 90 or 91, all these things these people said at this seminar was totally valid. Um, you know, we need this, we need that, but these people looked at it like it was the civil rights movement, like it was another version of the civil rights movement. Like, okay, no.
Yeah.
We are not, as people with disabilities, we are not being denied access to restaurants. Provided there's no, I mean, provided they're ADA up to code and all that stuff. But I'm saying we don't walk into a restaurant, you know, and they refuse to serve us. It's not the same thing. So
Right.
stop comparing it. And they gave me a T-shirt with with the handicap symbol around it and a heart, and I was like, oh, I'm not putting that on. Like, stop. And and that's the, I mean, I know we're allowed to cuss, but still, I'm just gonna say that was the polite version of what I told them. Um,
Yeah.
and I just, no, because this doesn't define who I am. And so I said 99% of the time, I've said no. This is the one. This Jan is the one time that I'm saying yes, that I will, do this. Uh, but I've always just lived my life, and that's what I want to do. And at the end of the day, we all have our trauma and everything, but our trauma, um, it doesn't end. But we go from different stages, and at some point, we just want to live our lives. We want to do all the stuff. And so if I were to constantly, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, and there's plenty of wonderful people that work in the field of like disability advocacy. But if I was just to do that my whole life, have I, in some ways, one could argue like you haven't really moved on from that aspect. And I've always wanted to move on from that aspect. And sometimes that has involved doing things just because you just want to be so normal. That's involved some bad decisions. That's involved some, you know, I'm the first person out the door when somebody says, "Hey, there's a party, there's alcohol, there's pretty people there. Let's go. Let's have a good time." And then you realize, when you do that for 10 straight years from age 20 to 30, then you realize that you don't want to keep waking up the next day and not be able to function. Then you stop doing that. But I would try and be normal to the extreme. I would want to do all the normal stuff, but I couldn't just do it like anybody else. I had to go over the top because I wanted to prove to everybody that I could do that.
Yeah, which I think makes a lot of sense when we are trying to grapple with both things. We're grappling with trauma and we're grappling with what our wants and desires are and how does one thing affect the other, and not dwelling on something in some ways, like you said, that I really love the way you stated that. This is not the same thing, but there are traumatic pieces that come through when some of these pivotal moments in your life that maybe looking back on, you either wish could have happened or you wish they didn't happen, or just like anyone going through a life experience. And I can appreciate that because for myself, after my traumatic childhood and what happened to me, I wanted to look and be and act normal too.
Sure.
So I can appreciate that desire because you do. And a lot of times I think parents are also very anxious for things to look like everything's okay and normal, to go back to whatever looks and feels normal to the family, to your parents, and maybe other people that are your relatives or siblings or whatever. You kind of have been through something, but see, mine was this not singular experience. It took place over years, but then when it was over, it was over.
Right.
You live with this every day, and yet you refuse to let it define your life, your limits, you are committed to moving forward and not living in the drama of your trauma, because there is such a thing. And there's even a book out there right now. And people get addicted to or lost in the trauma and the drama of it, and they never find their way out. And I know that for many, many years, some of those years not dealing with my trauma head on is why I went through multiple marriages. I hadn't dealt with my actual trauma. I hadn't really healed what was broken. And therefore, I went through a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I wish that I had dealt with some of that sooner. But my whole idea was I wanted to look normal. And to me, normal looked like getting married, having children, looking like what my parents had.
Mm-hmm.
But my parents didn't go through what I went through.
Right.
So I needed to have some adjustments made.
Yeah.
What are some of those pivotal moments in your life that have, shaped where you're at right now and who you are, what you want? Just, can you take us through some of those pivotal moments by your choosing, what you'd like to choose to kind of say, here's some pivotal moments that affected me and where I am today?
Yeah. Well, I want to just kind of backtrack a second, and
Sure.
You'd said that the Oh my God, I have so many things going on through in my
Yeah,
head.
I said too long of a sentence. Maybe I should go back.
um,
Cut it up.
but yeah. So oh yeah, I remember now. So the thing, you had said, you just, you're trying to look normal. You want to do all the normal things, just like I had alluded to that. And I'm gonna give a message to all the parents out there. Jan, I think you'll agree. Maybe you won't though, and I don't know. But when I was back at this seminar for people with disabilities, the parents who all came to pick up their children, because we were all 15,
Hmm.
16, 17, but a lot of the kids had a lot more physical challenges than I did, and these parents, they were such helicopter parents.
Mm.
And and one of the things that I was asked to do, because apparently I'm good at talking, I don't know, you be the judge. um,
Very good at talking and very intelligent and thoughtful. Yes.
Thank you. Well, I've tried to shape my life that way with it's been my thing. But anyway, so they wanted me to run one of these workshops, and it was like having a disability and doing X, whatever that may be, shopping, this, that, doing this, and I don't know how I landed on the gold mine, which is how do you date and have a disability. Now, mind you, I'm 17 years old at this point.
Gee.
So I didn't have as nearly as much experience as I do now, but I still had the confidence, and I'd had a few experiences, sure. Um, so everything that I said, it wasn't necessarily just making it up. I mean, there was some facts to it. Um, but so I said, you got to be confident. I said, if there's I said, for the guys in the room, if there's a girl that you like, go up to her and talk to her and say, hey, or if you're in a bar, buy her a drink. Just there's one way to do it, and that's how to do it. And obviously, those of you listening, yeah, I mean, there's a million ways that you can eventually introduce yourself. But I mean, at some point, you got to just be confident and be like, hey, what's up? And they stopped the seminar or the speaking part of it, and they kind of said, okay, Matt will be back in a second. And they bring me over to the corner, and they go, you can't you can't say that. And I go, why? What did I do? And they said, well, none of these kids have been on a date before. You can't just tell them to be confident. They don't have confidence. And I said, well, how the hell are they going to get confidence? I said,
Yeah.
we're making jokes about living in your mom's garage with your band. Well, they're all going to be living in their mom's garage with their band if they don't get confidence, because and helicopter parents, and this is the part where I said, Jen, you may agree, may not, but in my opinion, now obviously when there's some sort of a traumatic thing or something that the child can't handle, it's totally different. But helicopter parents, you are not doing your kids any favors. The world, although has a very positive side to it, the world is mean and scary. Okay,
Yeah.
and parents, the world is mean and scary. It's going to be mean and scary when you're there. It's going to be mean and scary when you're gone. But your kids are going to be here long after you're gone. So your best interest is to let them make mistakes within
Mm.
reason, obviously. But you know, I remember, um, my 21st birthday. Well, actually, the weekend of my 21st. I think I went to a basketball game on my 21st birthday, but the weekend of my 21st birthday, my parents didn't say, you can't go out because you're just going to get wasted because it's your 21st birthday. They're like, no, we understand that you're going to get wasted for your 21st birthday. Just take a taxi home, you know, like and I did, and it was terrible the next morning, and but the worst thing that you can do, and I know some of these helicopter parents do this, no, you can't go out because you're going to get drunk. Well, you got to let people get drunk sometimes, you know? I mean,
You gotta let them. You gotta let go so they can make their own way.
yeah. And so, and
And
especially when it comes to dating. So, getting back to, you had said, some some things that have shaped my life. You know, so dating.
But wait, before you even go there,
Yeah.
what happened with the conference? Did you get back on stage? And then what did you do? Here are the 10 ways to gain confidence.
Okay.
Walk up to a girl or a
Well,
guy and say, hey.
yeah. I mean, so I said that, and then they, and then I said, you know, show of hands, you know, who was. I mean, it was. I don't mean to be, you know, if this sounds offensive to anybody, I apologize. But then again, I don't apologize because the world is, as I said, very blunt. So, um, but I kind of went from. I mean, this is something you would see in a comedy movie or something. I kind of went from like the top down, and you know, I mean, I stopped short of you know saying sex because I knew that nobody in that room apart from me had probably had sex. So, but I was like,
Right.
okay, raise your hand if you have, and you know, there were girls there too. So it's like, raise your hand if you've kissed somebody. You know, like 4 people raised their hand out of like 30. Okay, raise your hand if you know you've been on a date. Okay, 7 people. You know, raise your hand if you've uh, you know talked to somebody. You know, like 10 people. And then I'm like, you know, raise your hand if you have no confidence and you've never talked to the opposite sex. And like all the hands shoot up. You know, that is something totally. I could see like a Will Ferrell movie about that. Like, oh, this is gonna be some work. You know,
Yeah.
but so I, you know, and that's almost exactly what I. That was exactly my response because the next thing I said was, okay, um, you know, who has a question? Somebody raised their hand, you know, and I felt bad because, like I said, I didn't have a lot of experience, but I had compared to these kids. And again, you know, we can, you know, there's movies out there, the 40-year-old version, and all this stuff. So that's the stuff we can laugh at. I'm not saying, you know, these, oh yeah, you know, I'm so lucky, and all these kids, you know, didn't have any experience. Well, they were all 17, 16. So none of this is on the kids, and we're not making fun of that or anything. Um,
No.
but you know, one of them raised their hands and said, "So you've had experience with some of this stuff?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Okay, what does sex feel like?" And I'm like, "Oh, geez." Like because you know,
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
I what am I going to say to a room full of you know mostly physically challenged people who haven't done
Right.
that before? Um, you know, it's like I also don't want to seem like the overbearing you know person that's done all this stuff. And it's like I was like, well, that's something I can't really explain to you, but um, I I can tell you that you know, and I kind of subverted it as quickly as I could because I just said I can tell you that when you do have it, it's going to be awesome, hopefully for you. But the reason it's going to be awesome isn't because the person is so pretty or so this or so that. It's going to be because you like the person, you know. Um, and I mean, I was being a little bit not facetious, but I mean, I was not being completely genuine there because come on, I was 17 years old, and so I hadn't even fallen in love with anybody yet. So I didn't even know. I mean, I said what I thought was true, but I didn't have that experience firsthand myself. I mean, um, but it was after that conference that I just shied completely away from the disability advocacy thing, and they gave me an award after, and I spoke at a banquet in front of 200 people at 6 in the morning, and it was really annoying, and I didn't want to be there. I was tired, but yeah, so that's what happened with the conference there. But to kind of lurch forward into what you had asked me about experiences in my life that have shaped it. Um, there's uh, there's probably one. There's a lot of experiences, but in terms of relationships, there's probably one really special one that I had about 9 years ago, and um, this is you know it's tough to talk about because spoiler alert, I'm not with this person right now, which is unfortunate. Um,
Right.
but you know, it was the complete definition of okay, finally, because we all want to be, like I said, we all want to be normal, you know. So finally, I was the high school quarterback that got to date the cheerleader. That that's the analogy there. Um, and this person didn't have a disability. Well, she did, but wasn't one you could see. Um, and you know, and just really treated me like I was a normal person because I am a normal person. And actually, even I mean, I told her, FYI, this is how this goes, that goes, with my disability, kind of the whole spiel that I gave at the beginning. And she was like uninterested. She just, I don't care about any of that. Like, where are we going for lunch? What are we doing? Like, and I, and that really, really shaped it because it taught me that, okay, you can fall in love with somebody that doesn't have a disability like yours. And that's a whole nother topic that maybe we can touch on here, is the idea of, and again, I am, some would say a hypocrite, some would, and I'm guilty, fine. um, but this idea, and I'm sure a lot of the disabled people that are listening to this are going to relate to it. I get so mad when somebody says you should date somebody with the same disability that you have. That is the reason why I've shied away from doing that. And I mentioned this to you earlier off air, Jan, but it was like I I didn't have some choices with some things uh, when I was younger, and then the combination of that and the whole disability thing and people not looking at you like a person, um, like a real person. So I now want all the choices, and I have all the choices. And so the people that I am attracted to, I mean, I've literally had friends of mine tell me that I need to try to date less attractive people because they think that there's that I'm aiming too high, to which I give them, a few four-letter words um, as a retort to that. But
Yeah, and I think there is a well deserved, uh, you know, some special language for people that are so what is that? So driven
superficial,
by yeah, like there's some kind of a caste system in our society or something because it's that subhuman almost. That's a something that somebody says to let you know that you're not quite as humanly whatever their idea of why wouldn't you would aim for what you want and what you are attracted to and another person is attracted to is really nobody's business to
it's
try to
yeah,
is it are they trying to protect you, is that why? Because to me it's like you're a very attractive person. You're
thanks.
a handsome guy, you're tall, you're all those things. You have your interests, you have the things that you do that make you, an interesting person. All kinds of things that a woman would be interested in and attracted to, and who's to say? I mean, who's to really say what that means to any other person? Because it is not like it has to be a certain way because you don't have black hair or you don't have blonde hair, you don't have, what color eye is the one that people are attracted to. I just it's really a narrow way of looking at the world.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to at all seem like what I'm about to say is completely opposite of what everything you just said because that is true. However, I mean, I'll just say there are things that one can do to make themselves attractive to other people, whether it be physically or in other ways. And if they don't do that work, then okay. maybe then you're kind of allowed to be like, well, did you maybe think about, this or this or this to maybe improve yourself because you're
To make
not
that effort.
right,
Yeah,
right. But
I
I
see that.
have, but I have done that, um, and so yeah, I, and I have, there have been people that I have dated who have been the kind of typical societal um, look, the 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 blonde, the 5'4", all that stuff, and they're not attractive to me because their personality wasn't attractive. And the person who um, I was in a relationship with, and she had insecurities. I don't know why, um, but she had insecurities. Like she didn't think that she was pretty, and I'm gonna tell you, I mean, in terms of, I mean, there was no place. If we want to get superficial about it, let's get superficial about it. There was no place this woman, from a physical standpoint, that needed improvement. Okay, um, and I remember she came to me one time and she said, "Oh, I'm out of shape," and I was like, I literally was ready to fight somebody. I, who told you that? Like, like I'm gonna go kick someone's ass right now. Like point out who told you that. And it's so sad in our society. But the reason why I think that this person was the most gorgeous woman on the planet is because I we clicked. And it's a good analogy. I was telling Jan yesterday. It's a good analogy to look at your parents. Everybody, look at your parents, and hopefully your parents have been together for a while, and they have. That's great. If they haven't, that's okay. They don't need to be, maybe just some relationship that your parents are in. If they're not, together, whatever. You just look and you go, okay, mom, who do you think is the most beautiful guy on the planet? And if everything's clicking, mom should always say dad. And same thing, vice versa. So I don't care what other people say. Um, and I mean, obviously, you're going to get defensive. I have had people tell me that, in their opinion, that person that I dated wasn't as attractive as they are, and I was just about ready to punch them in the face because because you're protective of the people that you love.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter if somebody else doesn't think they're attractive. It doesn't matter if everybody on the street has a different opinion. Okay, well, wait a minute. If everybody has a different opinion, maybe you need to look. But no, just kidding. Um,
There might be something to
maybe
it.
something to it. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, point is, if there are people that that want to say, oh, they have this little imperfection or that little imperfection or some sort of superficial thing, it doesn't matter. If you love that person, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this person, you know, this person didn't have a disability. This person could have had the pick of anybody, and she chose me. I still, to this day, don't know how I got that lucky, but you know, um, but that's what happened. And so
Yeah.
it it's a really messed up thing. But Jan and I were talking about soulmates the other day. You know,
Yep.
and I think it's very rare that we actually end up with those. We may meet somebody that's amazing and awesome and all that stuff, and they may fit with all of our stuff and may be married for 40 years and all that, and that's all good. But that person
Yeah.
might not be your soulmate. You know, um, I know that that's my case. Sorry, future wife. I apologize. I'll still love you though. I promise. Um, but I mean, you know, and if you happen to be that lucky person that meets their high school or college sweetheart and goes on, and I like to call it like World War II status, like You know, because they meet after like 2 dates and get married, and then they're married for 50
Yeah.
years, and that's what happened back in World War II. You know, I understand the reasons why, but that still just doesn't. I'm like, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, um, so if you're so lucky, I'm not religious. Jan knows this very well, but if you're so lucky, you need to get down on your knees and thank somebody for that, because that doesn't happen. And that's not to say that your other relationships aren't awesome and amazing and as fulfilling, but just getting back to the disability thing. Um, well, I wanted to see if maybe Jan wanted to touch on that and segue into something else though.
Well, no, I want you to get back to how that relates to, kind of the one that got away, or that sort of thing where you kind of feel like, oh, I kind of had this thing that I really think the future may not be my soulmate because that one got away.
Right.
And how do you cope with that? I mean, how do you develop skills around coping with something that your mind can drive you crazy about? And that's the thing. It's really an interesting uh, dialogue that you're having with yourself.
Well,
You quiet it.
yeah. Well, here's where I've been real this whole podcast, but here's where I'm gonna give you a new degree of real, and it sucks. Okay, but this is how that works. Is that now this relationship for me was like 10 years ago, and so obviously had I not dated anybody else in that span, right? Yeah, there'd be a problem. Somebody's gonna have to check me in somewhere because yeah, no, that is not healthy. And I have dated other people since then and all that, but that's not gonna go away. It's not gonna go away. What you can hope is what you need to do is you need to be happy for that person because you love them, and at one point they loved you, so you can be happy for them independently of anything else, and whoever they're with, or just throw that to the side because that doesn't matter. You could just be happy for them in a vacuum,
Mm.
and um, and then you try your best to um, find somebody that you like for them, just like that other person, um, and and in time you'll think about that other person less and less, um, and when you have a disability like I do, it makes it 1,000 times harder. Now, all the other people I've dated since then have also not had disabilities, um, and there were some good times there, and yeah, there was some thoughts about getting married or this and that. Didn't end up happening, but whatever. I mean, I've moved on and I've done but that other all those memories, they're still going to be there, and it's and I've made this comment too, Jen. I hate the whole "there's fish in the sea." I hate that uh,
Yeah.
because that's assuming that we're all on an even playing field. You know, I brought this up to you probably, I don't know, maybe a month ago, Jan. You know, another history lesson. FDR was president, obviously. For If you don't know who FDR is, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. Okay, you need to go get a history book. But anyway, no. FDR was president, and he was in a wheelchair. The
Yeah.
attitudes,
And Roosevelt. Mm.
um, the attitudes for disabilities uh, didn't haven't changed since then. 70, 80 years ago. Okay, they're not going to change. They're not going to. And you know what? It's okay. Um, it's okay to be mad at that. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to wake
Right.
up and call in sick to work even though you're not sick. I've done that.
Yeah.
Um, it, and when it comes to relationships, just do what you can to be happy. But, you know, whenever anybody says, oh, you'll forget about her, you'll forget about him, you don't. And
Yeah.
the more people tell you about that, the more you think about it. And so um, it's this reversal, very, you know, mind jumbling, to substitute from another word that I want to say. Um, it's a very mind jumbling thing,
And yeah, that vicious cycle of,
you know. And uh, for you know those of us that have a disability, and I mean, I'll just kind of touch on one important thing that I want to distinguish. It's very difficult to find somebody else with with my exact level of severity with my disability. If I do, I'll date them. That's no problem. But I got to take care of myself. And from a physical standpoint, I can't help. I can't physically help somebody else that has a disability as well. And so, for that reason, I've steered away from dating other people with disabilities. Not because I'm self loathing or self hating or, you know, anything like that. Um, but, uh, I once, I told one of these kids at this thing, the seminar for students with disabilities, that, I said, hey, man, who knows? I mean, think of the hottest celebrity you can think of, you can get her. And maybe not her, but, and I mean, I knew I was probably inflating the kid's ego, and he probably, because of the way society is, probably won't end up with somebody that looks like that. But what else are you going to say, you know? And believe me, if my disability was more severe, I'd be more mad at the world. I mean, there are people who, you know, I mean, have to blow through a straw to move, and it's just like I don't know if I could live that way. So this message is not for everybody. Um, it's for those who can relate, and I would assume that's a lot of people. But some of you might say that, Matt, you're not dealing in realities or this or that, or my experience was different. Cool, man. Your experiences was different. Um,
right.
but for the majority of people with disabilities, we just want what everybody else wants. We want love. We want compassion. Um, Sex is fun. We want that too. Oh my God, somebody with a disability said sex was fun. Wait, they're not supposed to say that. Um, and then, here's another thing, by the way. Here's another thing. There have been times where I have had encounters with people where they have wanted to have sex with me, and I have turned them down because I didn't want to have sex with them. And
Yeah.
same thing. Oh my God, wait, you have a disability and somebody offered to sleep with you. How could you say no? Because I have a certain standard that I want. I want to sleep with somebody at a certain standard of mine, and that's different for everybody.
Yeah, and that's just, again, that is the normal part of being normal. I mean, just because you have this, there's a disability, that doesn't mean that you don't have, taste, and you have your unique things that you're attracted to and other things that you're not, just like everyone else does. And I think that's really funny, because it's almost like when I hear you talk, I hear so much more of the way that I hope other, young, 20s, early 30s, that's the way that other, you know, people who would like relationships are talking. But a lot of the time, it feels like the focus is so overblown on how much money do you have, what kind of car do you have, or what do you look like, or, it's not that those things can't be an important thing, and maybe I didn't ask those questions, and that it was all about my feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm learning how to balance that better in my own life, to go, well, I can have all these great feelings and attraction and all these things, but what if that person isn't the complete fit for my life and for who I am, because I have these aspirations to, to start a foundation, run a foundation, to do podcasting, to act. I have interests just like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I want somebody that can support those things. And what if they couldn't? Then even if I have all these other feelings, that may not be the best fit for me. I think it's a matter of just actually, knowing that a person with disabilities does not function in some subhuman different way,
Alternate
like,
universe,
yeah, an alternate universe. Same things apply, you know? Which is, I think, why I wanted to have this conversation with you, which has been amazing, is because I know that you've been through some other traumas in your childhood, younger. We're not going to get into that today, but having, knowing where you have had a trauma that you have lived with and other things as well, just like normal people do. People have traumatic experiences and moments in life, and not everybody has to live through those and heal from those.
Uh, oop, Jan, you were on mute.
Sorry,
Oh, okay,
something
yep.
something with our sound.
Okay, back up like 15 seconds and start again.
Okay. So which part? Where was I at? That was we really want to make sure is
uh,
said. Here's clap, 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 clap in just a second.
so
Here we go into.
I, so I had said living in kind of an alternate universe, like people with disabilities aren't, living in an alternate universe. They're just like everybody else, and that's when you cut off.
Okay. Okay. So here's my claps. So the point is of having this conversation about this particular kind of trauma is that people with disabilities have an ongoing challenge
Mm-hmm.
or a trauma that you deal with every day of your life that's not going to go away. But in every other way, you are experiencing the same kinds of, you know, dreams and hopes and shattered hopes, and you adjust your dreams. Like, I wanted to be a famous actress. I mean, I just feel like I'm like one of the best actresses on the planet, but I've never been given the opportunity to, be in a series or to be in these blockbuster movies, even though I absolutely am confident enough that I can do the job. And it's not like I've given up on that dream,
Right.
but I've adjusted my life to go, I still have to feed myself. I still have to pay my mortgage. I still have to do things. So I will do these other things that are related, and I'll enjoy my life. I've made a choice to enjoy my life as it is and to continue to have dreams and to work towards other things. So I think that that's just a really important lesson in life, and one that you have been so transparent about. We have to start seeing, whether society changes or not, but as individuals who want to see people who have experienced trauma as fully vested humans. Just because you've had trauma or you have a disability or both, it doesn't mean that you're a broken, worthless, piece of trash.
Right.
You actually are just as human and just as important as everybody else. Now, whether people actually see that or they don't, I think our conversation helps move the needle towards something that I hope will actually inspire people to get to know that person that walks into your bar or your neighborhood event center or someplace where you can have a conversation with someone and actually find out how just normal they are. I think that's really an important message about trauma and people who deal with trauma.
Yeah, I can't say it any better myself. And by the way, shameless plug. Um, listen, all of you Thrivivors and people out there that are listening to this, we got to get Jan on Law and Order. Okay, somebody knows somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows Dick Wolf who knows Mariska Haggerty. Somebody help us, please. Okay,
Please help us.
I'm gonna do my
Please.
best, but because all of you Thrivivors and people that know Jan and that are fortunate enough to know Jan have seen A Friend of the Family, have seen, uh, the Netflix documentary Abducted in Plain Sight. So would not Jan Broberg be absolutely perfect for an episode of SVU? Of course she would. We got to make that happen.
Yay! Let's make it happen. I know I told somebody that's my favorite show that I've watched for years and years and years and years, and I love Mariska because she's started a foundation, and I love what she's doing. I'm trying to do something similar, and somebody on set or in one of my interviews around a friend of the family when we were doing all this press stuff found out about that, and they sent me a whole box of stuff which I posted on my socials opening the box. But my favorite thing that they sent me was this, and we have had some humorous moments, and if we're not watching this on video, here is what they sent me, this little red button, and just listen closely what happens when I push the red button.
I like it.
I love it. No, I've always wanted to do a show like that because I feel like when you can do, a show where they actually get it right in the world of, sexually abused people, and Special Victims Unit does that, and they do it right, and they use the right terminology, and I know that's because of her. So anyway, to me, it's been a really kind of a cool little thing to know that people out there found out that I loved that show, and they sent me some swag, and this was one of the things.
Well, yeah, and
it makes me happy.
Yeah, and so and for all of you that maybe don't have the fortune yet to know Jan and to be Jan's friend, Jan is one of the most incredible people that I've met, and I'm just going to say I've met some really incredible people. Okay, and Jan just
Thanks,
about
Matt.
tops the list. So. If you're going through something, and this is, this was me, this is probably a lot of you. You're going through something, and you just thought, okay, traditional therapy, isn't working, or this or that or whatever. I need somebody that just gets me. Jan will be the one that gets you. So.
Well, I feel really fortunate that we did meet,
Yeah.
and that this has worked. It's been wonderful for me as well, to coach people that are struggling with something, and to have met you in that way, and you've become such a good friend. And I really appreciate, I appreciate all those things that you said. That was not a paid for thing.
Nope, was not.
It was just really the fact that we have these opportunities to get to know people if we allow it, if we actually open the door to that. And I think that this has opened that door to maybe many others to have the opportunity, to get to know. Matt has been a huge blessing in my life, and thank you for saying the things, those lovely words. I really appreciate it, because my only desire in telling my story and wanting to help people is that they feel that they're worth it and that they're believed. That was my big thing. People need to be believed, and that people experience trauma, and trauma is trauma. And mine happened to be, in my tween years and into my teen years, and it was sexual assault and rape and abuse and brainwashing. You've had a different kind of trauma, but it still affects your life. And if people can have hope that there is a way to get through the dark days, and there is a way to get to the other side and to do some healing, and then to have tools when you still have to deal with life, which is going to keep coming at you. I just wanted to be that real of a person to be able to share not only my childhood story, but my adult story. I've been through a lot of different things, and it's a privilege when I get to talk to somebody and maybe be able to say something or to listen in a way that allows them to move forward and to know that there's hope. And that's the thing. I want everybody who listens here to have hope. Last question.
Yeah.
Do you think that you are at all what's the right word? Limiting your chances by being, how do I put this? I want to say this in the right way, by being um, a little bit, maybe tiny bit jaded. Now don't get mad at me for saying this. In how you've had that, yeah, a few pivotal relationships and moments. Is there a little bit that might be a little bit jaded in finding another potential soulmate?
I mean, well, okay. So jaded in what way?
In like not believing that that's either possible or that it could be that kind of a relationship, because you've said it in a sort of a roundabout way, but that you don't think people are going to change, and then how could anything, be like that one that was so perfect that got away, or whatever, however you want to put that. You've kind of said, I don't think I'm ever going to get that again, but I'll be in love with that person.
Yeah.
I hear still a little bit of that. And not that everybody gets fairies and rainbows and wine and roses every day, and that, every dream comes true. I'm still like, I'm still in the quest for the right, you know,
Yeah.
love relationship. I hope it still is out there in that way, but I'm very happy with my life.
Yeah. Well, just
I have a lot of hope.
just 5 seconds, real quick. By the way, somebody along the line, messed up by not, putting a ring on it for you, Jan. That's their fault. Okay, all right. Men can be very stupid. Okay, so let's just and it's clearly.
Oh, I'm not perfect.
Well, you're not. No, but no. I mean,
no, shocker. Hey, newsflash.
So to answer your question, I I don't think I'm jaded because all of my energy and all of my what I can give to somebody will be given to whoever that eventual person is. Um, and it, when I say that nobody will be like that person, it's true. I mean, everybody is different though, and so that's kind of what I try to say. And people, um, people that actually know my personal situation, which I'm talking about, have even said, "Oh, there'll be somebody, better," and it's like, I'll be different. Don't it won't be better, and because when you meet the person that gives you the hope initially, and by the way, just not full disclosure, but you know, a fair amount of disclosure. I mean, this relationship that I was in was not the first one. It was not the first relationship I'd been in. There'd been others before. So, and I say that because if it was, then that's kind of, oh well, that's why he thinks that, because that was the first time he slept with somebody, first time, yeah, no, um, uh, no, this was, I don't know, number 3 or 4, something like that. I don't know, but it's when you meet somebody that, especially when you have the trauma that I have, where um, where you're constantly, as we've said, treated as, from a relationship standpoint, as not human, or not this or not that, or not somebody who's worthy of love or sexual stuff or anything like that. When you're treated that way, but then somebody comes along who not only treats you normally, but they are from a societal standpoint anyway. I mean, they have this great personality, and then from a societal standpoint, they meet all those beauty standards anyway. Um, you and you're like, wow, those people do exist. And I know that some of you are going to listen to this and go, oh, well, then there you go. He's talking skin deep. Well, sometimes it's an all-encompassing thing, you know. Um, and I guess that's a roundabout way of answering your question. Is, yeah, I think I probably am a little bit jaded, but you know what? If you go through life and you're not a little bit jaded, I don't think you've lived.
Right.
And I'll just wrap that up with saying this, and a little bit tongue in cheek, because like I said, to repeat for the 15th time, yeah, I'm going for it, and I'm looking for the person and doing all the right things, but there's you know
There's a gold
there's
standard
there, there,
that you
there's a
had.
gold standard, and like if you're the guy that gets five numbers right on the lottery instead of all six, like there's nothing wrong with number two, man. you know, and
Yeah.
and yeah, there's a gold standard, but at no point am I going to look at my future wife in the face and be like, yeah, you're great, but there was this other person. No, I'm not going to do that. So nobody's going to suffer any loss of love or anything like that. But, you know, the especially when you've been through trauma, the first person to help you with that and be all those other amazing angel-like qualities, you're not going to get better than that. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that is a thing that I remember when I described it to somebody. I said, I feel like when I started my path with kind of healing, and I didn't even know that was exactly what I was after or doing, that I was holding on to this beautiful bouquet of balloons. That's how I described it. And I was like, and one by one, I had to let that one, that balloon had to go. I had to let that go and still be able to go, what I have left here is still a beautiful bouquet of balloons. It doesn't look like it did a minute ago,
Great analogy.
but it's still there. And even if I got down to the very last balloon, I was still going to hold on to that hope, and that some of those wonderful things that make us, you know, fall in love when we're 16 and 17 and 21 and 24 and all those things that are there, they are important in our own journey, in our own development, but we're not going to have all of those same things for our whole life. It's like trying to marry somebody and hope that she never has a wrinkle on her face,
Yeah.
or that she doesn't get any stretch marks when she has your children. I have those.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's about getting very clear about what really, really matters, and making sure that those big pieces are there, and then being able to let go of all of those little, that list of 100 things or whatever that I must have written down at some point in my life. And other people they'll criticize, this kind of a conversation and say, well, you should write down every little thing and just really like paint the picture, and then the law of attraction will bring it to you. And I'm like, well, I've done those things before.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it didn't.
yeah.
That
No,
didn't
that
happen.
doesn't.
You know,
That doesn't work. Um,
no, it doesn't mean I've lost hope. It just
sure.
means that I've become more grounded and realistic about the fact that life has pain, and that trauma is real, and that we can continue to heal, and we can truly release so many traumas and actually not even have them anymore. We really can. That I know that that's possible, but it takes work and it takes time, and there's going to be other things that are going to be hard. It's just a wonderful journey, and that's why I like to call life a journey. And if you can get past those things that give you such deep sorrow and sadness, and get to the other side where you can then see the light again, then you keep going, and you can have a really good quality of life. And that's, I guess, if I was to say to anybody that you're an inspiration, Matt.
Well, you're allowed to say that because you know all the other stuff.
I do. I know all the other stuff. And that's what makes you an inspiration, because you've been through a tremendous amount of things that have come, have gone, successes, failures, and you're still working at life.
Yeah.
And you're still working towards things that are your dreams and your wants.
Yeah.
And things that you need, you get taken care of, you take care of business, but there are still hopes and dreams in you. And I think that is inspiring. Anyone that goes through traumatic challenges in their life and comes out on the other side as a person that is still hoping, that is still trying, to me, that is inspirational.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think you're an inspiration, and I get to say that. Thank you so much.
Well, Thank you, Jan, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and thank you all for listening. If I've helped one person, then the goal is accomplished. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Nice.